Hello and welcome to Cupcake Addiction's Rainbow Unicorn Cake Pop tutorial, where I'm going to be showing you how to make this gorgeous little unicorn cake pop with a rainbow mane. I've had so many requests for something unicorn from you guys, and this is your channel, so I want to make things that you guys love watching. Today I'm really excited to show you how to make this absolutely gorgeous unicorn cake pop. So tools and equipment that we will be using today: I've got some lollipop sticks, a pair of scissors, I've got a knife, I've got a pre-rolled cake pop ball. Now, if you don't have a great recipe for getting your cake pop to this stage ready to dip and decorate, I will leave a link to the My Cupcake Addiction recipe in the description box below. I've got that one there to show you how I shaped the head today. And I've also got another pre-shaped, pre-refrigerated head that's nice and firm and ready for us to get decorated with, just to save a bit of time. I've got some black candy melts melted. I've got a little bit of melted white chocolate or melted white candy melts. I've got some white sprinkles or white non-pariels, some plain water. I've got one miniature pink marshmallow, and I'm just going to use that to fashion the ears today. One piece of candy corn that we're going to use for the horn. If you don't have access to candy corn where you are, you can also fashion a little bit of fondant just into a long triangle shape to make a horn, but you will need to do that the day before just to let that horn completely dry before you try to attach it to your cake pop. I've got some rainbow sour straps. Now, these are candy straps or sour straps. We get them here in Australia, and I know that you can pick them up in America. Other parts of the world, if you don't have access to these rainbow sour straps, you can roll some fondant in a bit of a rainbow pattern, and it doesn't have to be straight lines. You could do like a marbled rainbow pattern and sort of keep the rainbow look, but really make them your own. I've got some toothpicks and a little bit of wax paper or greaseproof paper. So let's get started. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to show you how to roll this head shape. It is really simple. You've got your lovely ball, and you're just going to take your two hands and just rock down in the palm of your hand, and you're just making almost like a bit of a strawberry shape. Something like that. You don't want the nose to be too pointed or too rounded, but you just want it to be sort of like a little bit of a muzzle there. So that's what you're looking for in your cake pop shape. Now, as I mentioned, this one here has been refrigerated. So once I've shaped it, I've refrigerated it for about 15 minutes, so it's really nice and firm. So what we want to do before we get into our cake pop too much is we want to make our ears. So you're going to take that one marshmallow, and you might have seen me do this in our zebra cake pop tutorial. So you just want to cut across on an angle so that you've got two halves of that pink marshmallow. And what we're going to do is you should have like sort of the sticky inside there. We're going to dip that in our white chocolate. So you want to dip the outsides but leave that pink inside. So just taking that white chocolate, you just want to dip it in one side and tilt it over so that the white chocolate comes all the way up both sides there, but doesn't go over that pink. Just give it a little shake off to get off any excess. And then I like to put it pink side down onto that piece of greaseproof paper, and that's going to allow it to completely dry. Don't worry if you've got any little tails or anything on it, because you can just knock those off once it's all dried. So just again with the second one, and down, ready to dry. Now, I've pre-made some of those just for a little bit of speed for us today. For your unicorn horn, you're going to take that piece of candy corn, and it's a little bit too big as just a straight piece of candy corn. So just take a sharp knife and just cut down the middle, splitting it in half. Now, to add a little bit of shimmer, and this is purely optional, but I've got just a little bit of these colour mists. This is a Wilton colour mist. You can get them at Michael's in the US. I think Spotlight sells them here in Australia, and all good cake decorating stores. And I've just given it a little shake and just a little spray. So it's not going to take the entire gold colour. I'm not sure why. When you do this on fondant or on other surfaces, the spray actually works quite well. But this one, I guess the candy corn's just a different surface. It really just gives it a nice shimmer. Now let that dry for about 10 minutes or so. But what you should have is your piece of candy corn with just a little bit of a hint of gold. So now that we've got our little bits and pieces there ready, we're going to get our mane organised. So for the mane, what you want to do is you want to take the candy strap. Now, you can see here, I'm just going to show you the back of my little unicorn's neck. That runs all the way down, and it actually goes down his neck. So it's about 2/3 of the size of our candy strap. Now, this piece here is going to be the main part of his mane that runs all the way down the back, and this other little piece we're going to use to do his little rainbow fringe. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the rainbow fringe, and I found it easiest just to cut almost like a bit of a square shape, and then you just want to nick into it with the scissors, just creating a bit of a haphazard star kind of a shape. Now, don't be tempted to throw away any of your little tiny pieces of offcut yet, because we are going to use some of those Now with your star, it's still looking a little bit squarish, and that's totally fine. What we're going to do is we're just going to cut out a round half circle, and that's going to be a little space for our candy corn to sit in. So just cutting around, giving it a nice sort of a whitish circle, like that. So you should have a little piece that looks like that. Now, for your other piece, so we'll just put all those little shards over here. For your other piece, what you want to do is you want to cut. So see, I've got 5 colours. I've got my red, orange, yellow, blue and green. I'm going to cut into the blue and green, not cutting into the yellow on this side, and I'm going to nick it all the way down, and then I'm going to repeat on the other side. So I'm just nicking about 1 millimetre or so, maybe 2 millimetres apart from each other. You want these quite close to give us that really nice mane effect. Perfect. Now that your mane's got all of its little tiny, little tassels in it, you want to cut back and you just want to cut just a tiny corner off each one. This is probably the most time-consuming part of this tutorial, and if you are going to use fondant or something like that, it's a little bit tougher to cut. It's not going to be quite so pliable, or quite so firm to cut. It's going to be a bit more pliable. So you just want to come back down and just take a little tiny nick off each of the corners, and that's just going to give us a bit of definition. Otherwise, those little mane side bits tend to bunch up and you can't really tell that they're a mane. For these accessories, you can make the ears and the unicorn horns and all of these little mane bits. You can make them a week or so in advance and just leave them sitting in an airtight container or just under plastic wrap, so that you can kind of get them done when you've got a bit more time and not right before you need the pops. All right, so we're done with all of our decorations and we've got them all sitting off to the side, ready to place onto our little unicorn. And we're going to take our lollipop stick. It's time to start getting our unicorn ready to dip and decorate. So you want to just take those white chocolate or that white candy melt, whatever it is that you're using, dip that lollipop stick in about 1 centimetre or so. Now taking your unicorn head, it should have an ever so slightly flat bottom where it's been refrigerating. So you just want to take that flat bottom and you're just going to insert that pop stick. Perfect. So now you want to let that seal completely set and completely dry. Once that's completely set, we can come back and we can get ready to dip and apply all of our decorations. All right, so we're back from the fridge and I'm happy that that little seal is really set. It should only take a couple of minutes if you refrigerate it, or maybe 5 or 6 minutes if you just leave it on the bench. So now you want to take your white melts. Now when we dip this, we're actually going to take the neckline of our unicorn all the way down to about here on the stick. So I'm using quite a deep container and I'm going to dip all the way in. I'm going to come past that chocolate seal and give him a little bit of a long neck, sort of like we did with our giraffes when we made those earlier in the year. Pull him out and you just want to give him a couple of tap-offs just to evenly distribute that chocolate and get rid of any excess. Make sure you turn him a little bit. Now, if you are finding that you've got a little bit of excess of chocolate, you want to remember that this front section of his face is going to be really, really exposed and the back section is going to be covered by the mane. So if you're looking like you've got any little drizzles, try to move them to the back of the mane where they're not going to be noticed. So the first thing that you want to put on here is going to be the unicorn's horn. So working quite quickly here, you want to put that horn right in the center, the top, and just push it in a little bit. Don't push it in too far because you don't want to crack that cake pop. Then you want to take those 2 ears, 1 and 2, and we're just going to sit those in too on either side of that horn. Leave a little bit of space around the horn for that little fringe to attach to, so you can get the sides of the fringe up there. Now taking your little fringe, slide it in, it should sit nicely on there on either side, and just push it down. Now you can take your toothpick here and just use that just to push the little fringe down. Perfect. I've got a little bit of white chocolate that's come up there, so I'm just going to use my toothpick just to clean that off a little bit so that we've got no white chocolate popping up in between our fringe and our candy corn horn. Beautiful. Now, for the mane, you want to take your mane at the back, and it's up to you. I prefer to do, rather than keep the rainbow going all the way down, I prefer to turn it because it just gives it a little bit more colour. And you want to put it right up flush against your piece of candy corn. And then you're going to push it down. Don't push it on the sides, just push it in the middle because you kind of want those sides to pop up a little bit off the chocolate if you can. And you can see there I'm pushing it just really gently and I'm tucking it underneath the back of our unicorn's head and letting it come all the way down that pop stick. Beautiful. Now I found when I looked at him like this, or her I guess, mine's a him, his name's going to be Toby, I found that it just looked like you needed a little bit of something on either side of the unicorn horn there. So that's where these little tiny pieces here came in. So I just got a little tiny bit of that melted white chocolate, stuck it like a little blob, I guess, and then just take some of those little multicolored pieces and just stick them down, sort of like little spiky tufts of hair. It really set the cake pop off, and I thought it just made it come to life. So I did, I think, about 3 on either side on my last one. I actually thought that without the horn and a couple of different coloured candy melts, you'd have yourself a great rainbow dash cake pop from My Little Pony. If you guys do make any of this stuff, we're on Instagram and you can use the hashtag #MyCupcakeAddiction. I'm always checking out my Instagram and having a look, that and Facebook, seeing what you guys are creating. Alright, so you should have your little rainbow unicorn cake pop looking somewhat like this. So this is down the back of his head and across the front. You'll find the stick sets just a little bit slower than the cake pop ball because the stick is at room temperature and the cake pop ball's refrigerated. So you might just need to wait a little bit longer for that stick to set. Now you want to take, I'm going to use the back of a lollipop stick. So for this you're going to need your black candy melts, or you can also use dark chocolate. I've got some of my little white sprinkles, and they're a bit optional. You can also use just a little tiny dip of white chocolate, but I find that little white sprinkles give it kind of a 3-dimensional pop, and they're always the same size. And I've got a little bit of water. So I'm just going to dip into those black candy melts, and I'm going to add his 2 nostrils. So 1 and 2. If you make a mistake on any of your black candy melts, don't try to wipe it off while it's wet because you're going to make a bit of a mess. Just let it dry and then get a really flat knife and just kind of shave it off, and you should be able to just remove it and go again. So don't panic too much. Now, working quite quickly on the eyes, you want to position the eyes on either side of the fringe, sort of up on the side. Do 1 dollop, and then you want to take your cocktail stick or your toothpick, dip it in the water, and that's just so that it's able to pick up some of these little white sprinkles. And it's going to pick up just a couple. I've got 2 there. Just take 1 of those sprinkles and position it at the front of the eye. Perfect. So that gives you like the little bright of the eye or the little white of the eye, and it just kind of brings your unicorn to life. So we'll repeat that again on the other eye. Dip it in the water. So there you've got your gorgeous little rainbow unicorn cake pop. I hope that you guys love little Toby the rainbow unicorn as much as I do. I think he's the most adorable little guy, and I really enjoyed making him. Thanks very much for tuning in to My Cupcake Addiction.